All right, well, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. My name is Ryan Baer with the U.S. Chemical Safety Board, and I'm pleased to introduce our chairman, Katherine Lemos.
First of all, thank you all for coming today. I really appreciate. We battle between outside and inside, and this room seems to be really appropriate in terms of spacing. COVID safety, as you know, we're a safety agency, and that's our top priority. As Ryan mentioned, I'm Dr. Katherine Lemos, the Chairman and CEO of the U.S. Chemical Safety and Hazard Investigation Board. We refer ourselves to as the CSB for short because we like acronyms. With me is Ben Schrader, the CSB Investigator in Charge, or IIC, as we call them. Back to acronyms. And Ryan Baer, who introduced me, is one of our CSB supervisory investigators. So investigators from the CSB arrived on scene in Gainesville on Thursday evening, the day of the event, to begin the on-scene portion of our investigative activities into the liquid nitrogen release at the Foundation Food Group. Now, according to the Public Information Officer for the Fire Department, this incident resulted in 6 fatalities, 12 transports to hospitals, and 130 evacuees. The remainder of the CSB team arrived yesterday, and that includes myself. I arrived late last night. Before going further, on behalf of the CSB, I extend our deepest condolences to the families, the extended families, and the friends of the victims of this tragic accident. There's really never a good way to fully communicate how important that is and the impact. So primero que todo, quiero expresar mi más profundo pésame a las familias y amigos de las personas que perdieron a sus seres queridos en esta tragedia. I can't imagine the loss you're feeling today, and the reason we are here is to prevent this from happening again. So the CSB is an independent federal agency charged with investigating inadvertent chemical releases at fixed facilities throughout the U.S. These releases have significant impact on the safety of humans, whether they're inside the plant or outside the facility, as well as the environment. We determine the probable cause of the events and issue safety recommendations for the purpose of preventing future such events. Safety is our priority. Mr. Schrader is an experienced senior investigator and is leading a team of multidisciplinary experts in chemical and mechanical engineering and safety management systems. Since arriving, the team has been collecting information. They've interviewed key staff with firsthand knowledge of the event. They've interfaced with local emergency management and other agencies and jurisdictions on site. So here is what we know thus far and that we can share with you. At approximately 10:15 on Thursday morning, January 28th, multiple 911 emergency calls were made to report an incident at Foundation Food Group's Prepared Foods Division, which was Plant 4 of that facility here in Gainesville, Georgia. Emergency responders identified the event as a hazmat or a hazardous material situation immediately, And the responding agencies included multiple, which was wonderful: Hall County Fire Services, Hall County Sheriff's Office, the Gainesville Fire Department, and the Gainesville Police Department. Now, you're already aware of the emergency response and evacuation of other employees, so I'll move on to other elements. There's been a lot that's already been produced in the media cycle. The County Sheriff, Gerald Couch, confirmed that 5 employees died at the scene and others were transported to Northeast Georgia Medical Center. One of those employees later succumbed to their injuries at the hospital, which leads to the 6 fatalities. And Hall County Fire Services notified the media that there actually was no explosion, which is critical. Now what I'm going to explain to you are the facts about the events leading up to the 911 call, and which we're still investigating, so I'm going to tell you everything that we have available that we can release today. As you may know, the facility processes poultry. In Plant 4, there are 5 production lines, and the event occurred on line 4. On line 4, chicken is processed to include seasoning, cooking, and flash freezing. Liquid nitrogen is used to flash freeze the chicken. There was a release of liquid nitrogen, an inadvertent release, which rapidly converted to a gas. And so that I can help you understand a little bit about what the impact of this is, the gas is heavier than air and forces oxygen out of the room. In the facility, a cryogenic freezer and associated equipment houses and disperses the liquid nitrogen. The liquid nitrogen is stored external to the building in tanks in the parking lot, and that's what supplies the plant internal facility. In a description of the incident with CSB investigators, the maintenance manager described personally closing the isolation valves of the tanks in the parking lot. Subsequent to the event, shutting off the supply to the building, which limited the potential damage or consequence of the event. So we are working to understand the exact location of the point of release of the liquid nitrogen inside the plant. Just this morning, company officials have cleared the site as safe for CSB investigators to enter, and our team has been on site all day, trying to understand where the release occurred inside the plant. We have learned that Plant 4 receives 2 to 3 18-wheel truckloads per day of liquid nitrogen. That's a lot. It's a lot of liquid nitrogen moving in and out of that plant. We do know that major portions, we have also learned that Messer, M-E-S-S-E-R, that's a company. Messer supplied the external supply tanks, and we're still looking into who actually manufactured the interior equipment, the cryogenic equipment, which dispersed the liquid nitrogen to flash freeze the chicken. We do know that major portions of the liquid nitrogen system, both interior and exterior, were installed and commissioned in the last 4 to 6 weeks. So this is relatively new equipment and system at this site from what we have understood. We do have reports that tools were located on the ground around this equipment. We will be working diligently to determine more information regarding the installation, the age, operation, phase of operation, maintenance, and condition of all equipment related to the liquid nitrogen system, which is internal and external. So under Ben's leadership, our team will continue their on-scene part of the investigation over the coming days, conducting interviews and reviewing materials and documentation. And I'll give you a sense of the types of categories that our agency looks into when we examine and evaluate what's relevant. Equipment and design information. So it's what's there and how it was designed. Regulations, industry standards and guidance regulating that equipment and the operations. Training, operations and procedures, and the human and organizational factors. I'm happy to say that we are jointly conducting the investigation with OSHA Region 4 out of the Atlanta office. Others involved in the investigation include the Hall County Fire Services, in specific the Fire Marshal's Office, Hall County Sheriff's Office, as well as USDA Food Inspection Service. To reiterate, the purpose of our investigation is not just to find out what happened, but what events lead up to that, the final breach, and why that might have occurred, so that we can recommend changes to prevent any future occurrences of this nature. During this on-scene portion of our investigation, we will not be determining or speculating as to the probable cause. I know that's first and foremost in everybody's mind, but as an investigative agency, it's our civic duty to ensure that we consider all the potentials and not rule out others too quickly. Depending on the complexity of the investigation, it could take up to several years. So we have not yet determined, as I said, today we got in, we have a lot of information, and I look forward to potentially releasing more information in the coming several days. So as this is the start of an investigation, I know you'll want more information. You'll be asking questions. We'll keep you informed, and would like to give you our website and Twitter addresses. The website is www.csb.gov, and our Twitter is www.twitter.com/ChemSafetyBoard, and we will be glad to provide that information to any of you here or offline. On behalf of the CSB, I would like to thank the first responders to this tragic incident, as well as the supporting local investigative resources. We truly appreciate all they have done. It takes a team. I've heard many times it takes a village, and it really does. It takes a village. It takes those that are local to really help us better understand the nature of the event. So at this time, I'll be glad to take some questions. Before you ask your question, please provide your name and the outlet that you're with, so that so that we can better track it. And in the event, I will repeat the question in the event that I need to for the microphone. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm Jeff Gill with the Gainesville Times. Do you know what the situation is like play out right now as far as people being able to work? Are operations kind of going normally there at the moment, or how is that working? Are you investigating through there?
So I don't know as of yet. So the question was, are people able to return to work? What are the plant operations? What I know is that, what I can understand, and please confirm with me my support help here, if we were just able to enter the facility and cleared yet this morning, my guess is that the operations are not back up to production facility. So Ben, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Chairman Lemos. My understanding is Plant 4, which is one of 4 or 5 plants that they have at the site, Plant 4 is where the incident occurred, is out of service right now, pending our investigation. My understanding is most, if not all, of the rest of the plant is operating at maybe a slightly reduced capacity, but it continues to operate. But the Plant 4 people are generally staying at home, and that is kind of outlawed, and it's excluded from normal operations, and it's part of our investigation at this time.
Would you mind give us your name and spelling?
My name is Benjamin Schrader. I am the investigator in charge. The last name is spelled Schrade, D as in Delta, ER. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Luis Feliz Leon from The Nation magazine. So my question is for Mr. Schrader. So you've been conducting interviews. As we know, some of the workers at the plant are undocumented and some of them are monolingual Spanish speakers. So are there any measures that you're taking in order to ensure that you speak to all workers without fear of their immigration status?
So I will take the opportunity to answer that, and Ben, please help me out with this. Yes, we understand there is part of that going on. We cannot speak to the immigration status of the workers. We do know that there are bilingual interviewers working, especially with OSHA. And we also have investigative translators on our behalf. We will not be speaking to the status, that's not in our lane, of the status of the legality of the employees at the plant. Our job is to ensure that we understand what happened, what the process was, if the process was followed or not, and what the safety breaches are, regardless of the status of their immigration. Go ahead.
Hi there, Eric Perry with Fox 5 News. Question for you. If you could just kind of talk again about, you said the equipment was in place. Did you say 2 to 3 weeks ago, or was that 2 to 3 months ago? I know it's fairly new, but when did the equipment?
So I know, okay, I think I understand your question. When was the equipment in place? So the equipment for the liquid nitrogen, which includes the cryogenic internal equipment plus the storage tanks outside, we don't have all the details, but we understand that it was installed and commissioned, dates TBD, within the past 4 to 6 weeks. So installed doesn't mean it was commissioned and operational. And I'll tell you, we're still looking to determine when it was quote unquote turned on, whether the equipment was brand new, whether the equipment was refurbished. All those questions yet still to be answered. And having just entered the site today, that's still to be answered. But yes, within the last 4 to 6 weeks, the equipment was installed and commissioned. The details are still yet to be fleshed out. Go ahead.
Hi, Vanessa McCrae with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. You mentioned two things that I was curious about. One was that a maintenance manager or worker was turned off something, maybe out in the exterior facility. What triggered him to do that? Was that after alarms had already been raised? And then secondly, you mentioned something about tools being found on the ground outside, and I wonder, is there a conclusion you're drawing from that, or what does that significance have?
So those are wonderful questions. Thank you for asking that. So first of all, yes, the supply was turned off to the inside of the building after the event occurred to prevent further damage. It's really to contain. It's a normal routine action in response to that type of event, whether it be a plant or a vehicle or anything else, right? You turn off the fuel source. In terms of the tools, I mentioned that specifically because of the fact that could be something we will further, and that could give us clues, but we don't have further clues because as of yet today, As of when I was giving the information for this briefing, we don't have the significance of that and which tools. I am told that just in the past few hours, from Ben Trader and his team, we might have new facts to deliver that would be in a future briefing, maybe tomorrow or the next day. But I have not sifted through that information, but that certainly is an interesting, so I don't know yet the phase, if it was in maintenance, startup, how long ago it started up, we really don't know. Yes, in the back?
Scott Hodden with WSB TV. Do y'all also look at security camera video as well, just to see what, just to be able to capture what happened live, if there is any sort of security camera video available?
I can tell you that routinely security camera video is reviewed. I don't know what was available at this time, and I will confer with the team. But absolutely every source of information is utilized. As investigators, we have access to what is needed and what is available. So if there is information gleaned from that that's relevant, absolutely that will come into play. I bring that into the timeline. I have been given, what I'm providing today is everything that my team has confirmed for me, except for details collected just recently prior to this event. So if that's the case, then certainly we would look into it. In front?
Chu Her with the WXIA. You mentioned it could take several years depending on how complex the investigation is. Can you elaborate on what could make this investigation very complex to the point where it could take years?
A lot of things are complexity of equipment, complexity of the operations. As you may know, the Chemical Safety Board deploys to, I mean, the chemical industry is very wide. It's not just food processing, it's refineries, it's plastics, it's many different things. So I don't know yet the complexity of this particular environment, but I do know that if there's any immediate or urgent safety finding or recommendation that we would want to make to the community, whether local or nationwide, if we discover this is nationwide, we will issue that on an emergent basis. You will not need to wait to the end of the investigation. So we are a team that's building our investigators. Certainly, they're very experienced, but there are a lot of investigations that they have to juggle at the same time. And part of this comes down to how readily available the information is from the company. You know, getting that information and analyzing it and sifting through it. So as I said, if there's something urgent, we will issue a urgent safety recommendation. We do work with OSHA, right? So OSHA and EPA in this case, not as much because there was not an escape externally. So we are working with them very closely. We have memorandums of understanding and agreement with them about how to share information and facts. And we keep our lines separate, but we also share information so we don't tax the people that we investigate and the company to repeat the collection of information. Anything else? Go ahead.
One last question. I know, so this is plant 4. Is liquid nitrogen used at any of the other plants at the facility? And if so, did investigators look to make sure that there are no safety issues or precautions at those other facilities?
That's certainly something we'll look at. From what I understand, that liquid nitrogen is not used on all of the lines within that plant. But that doesn't mean it's not used at other plants. The that I cited regarding the amount of liquid nitrogen that is supplied to plant 4 is specific to plant 4. And the fact that it's new, I don't know if this is the first instantiation of the use of this particular approach. There are different approaches to handling poultry and preparing it for outgoing production. And that's absolutely a great question. We'll look into that.
Do you know how much longer your meeting dates will investigate? Will it be weeks or how long is it going to be?
I'm sorry, I can't, I wish
How
I.
long, do you know how much longer you'll be in Gainesville actually investigate here?
Oh, so that depends. We've deployed a healthy team to the investigation, which shortens the on-scene part of the investigation. As you know, the on-scene portion of the investigation usually focuses on materials and information that will evaporate with time and is short-lived, such as memories, right? Any information in the materials in the surrounding area that will change composition based on time and environmental factors. A lot of the information we can ask for and review off-site and review back at our home sites. So I hope that answers your question. All right. Go
And
ahead.
I think you may have mentioned this, but when your investigation is over, is the CSB going to be the agency to maybe determine who may be held accountable at this point for this, or is that a different agency?
So, yes, a lot of agencies are involved, as you know, and each has their particular role. The CSB's mission is to come up with a cause or probable cause of the event with contributing factors. We put this in writing in a report. We hold board meetings so that the public and media can all participate in hearing everything that our staff and the technical experts have pulled together to come to those conclusions, the facts, we have the analysis, we have the probable cause statement with contributing factors, findings, and then recommendations which must come out of the findings and the probable cause. Those recommendations are made by our agency, yes. Do other agencies come up with other probable causes for certain elements of the event? Absolutely. And we coordinate to the best of our ability with them. All right, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yep.